claustrophobia. Now I do. All right. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. Today, we're answering the question, can one night of networking change the future of a city? To answer that question, we have Josiah Myers, a serial entrepreneur, founder of how do you say this? Arriva, VP of Growth for Vessel, and now CEO of Spilt Social. Spilt Social is an electric platform reimagining how leaders build community. From startup to grit to giving back, Josiah is the force behind this month's Louisville Business Hop. Outside of the boardroom, Josiah is a jazz-singing hotelier who builds community one honest conversation at a time. Welcome to the show, man.
Thanks, brother. Appreciate the rundown there.
Yeah. So the reason, we have a lot of friends in common, and we've got to know each other a little bit. But the reason I was most excited to have you on the show is the last business hop, which was in Covington, which is Cincinnati for those that aren't super familiar. We kind of bumped into each other a couple of times. It was super relaxed. I think a lot of times you go to these networking events and there's like, hi, my name is, what do you do? Right? It was super fun to go. But my favorite moment is during the after party. And if you're going to a networking event and you don't hang around for the after party, you've missed it. There's this college kid that I'm talking to, and you somehow finagle this bidding war because he wants to go do an internship over the summer with one of the guys at the after party. And you somehow there's this bidding war going on where you're trying to get, do you remember that?
That was so fun.
To me, that's just a perfect example of who you are. And it's also a perfect example of what the business hop is like. So without further ado, tell me why you are so excited about doing business hop.
So the business hop for me is the culmination of what I feel like my life's true purposes are. And I think it took me getting into a startup, really experiencing what going from nothing to, the series seed A, B. I took Arriva from 0 to just under 20 million in top line revenue and exited whenever we were at our series B and sold my shares to our largest investor, granted for pennies on the dollar, because I was sick of working with that individual. And so God bless him. But it was just time for me. It was like, there was no amount of money that was going to keep me in that game, working in an environment where I didn't want to be anymore. So it gave me the opportunity to check myself. I don't know how you operate, but for me, when I started Arriva, I didn't travel. I didn't leave the country. I didn't do anything unless it was me traveling for our next hotel or whatever that we were operating. But it was the first time where I really got to be like, okay, I don't have the next thing going on yet, which a lot of people don't ever have that moment in their life. And so I went out to the mountains of Colorado, went out the mountains of Seattle, went and visited some friends out in LA and, Phoenix and some other places. And I just really wanted to take that time to reflect on my career to that point, and then also think about what I wanted to do next. And in the back of my head was just flashing images and memories of me throwing parties in my dad's house whenever he was asleep. He had a defibrillator. And so he couldn't really hear what's going on. And so I'd, casually be having 200-person get-togethers in the basement. And then I went to Ohio University when they were #1 party school, rated by Harvard, rated by Playboy magazine. And I was the social chair of the most, kind of central party fraternity, if you will. And so I was putting on 1,000-person events, 30,000 budgets, flying in DJs from across the country. And I loved that. I did that for free essentially. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to throw parties and figure it out. And what has evolved from that first event that was kind of pointless and meaningless to now is we're really at the heart of mentorship in all of these communities. We realized early on that it's kind of pointless to just go throw parties and okay, yeah, we made a couple bucks, but who gives a shit? And so what really, really struck a chord for us and where me and PK, my business partner that launched this, looked at each other and said, holy shit, was whenever we saw C-level executives from Fortune 500 companies, current and former professional athletes, venture capitalists, private equity folks in the same room of folks that they're normally not in there with. And so these younger folks don't have the opportunity to sit down, ask the questions they really want to ask in a relaxed, as you pointed out and mentioned before, in a relaxed way. That's what we're about. And I always say, imagine yourself at 20 years old and If you could sit down with your favorite CEO of your favorite brand, what would that do for your life? And so those are the moments we're trying to create.
Yeah, I love it. This is actually what I'm most excited about from an AI perspective. I think AI is vastly overused. You can't have a conversation. You can't get a podcast with any sort of like push or virality if you're not talking AI. Um, but what we really need is more human connection. And so, what is your take on AI today and how it's going to affect business networking?
I think it's going to make it more valuable. So, the more convenient and the easier it gets to not leave your house and to be able to interact with a chatbot and to be able to do these different things and create these, we're fully taking advantage of that. But that makes me more excited for what we're doing because it's going to create more scarcity around it, which we know humans are going to always want connection. We know that there's value whenever you put certain people in a room together and really curate the discussion. And so the more AI happens, the more excited we get.
So, yeah, I mean, I feel the same way about it. There's a really interesting discussion about what is information. And as it turns out, information is just when we write down the random things that happen in our life that are meaningful. And so in other words, if you're not pressing up against other people and hearing how they're wrestling with challenges and how they solve challenges, AI is not going to solve that for you, right? Like the boundary of what we know and what we think about is found in those casual conversations with people that are out there doing it.
100%.
What are some of the coolest things that like conversations that you've been in at the business hops?
So every time we have one, there's like one news story or a few news stories that come out of it. But one that really strikes a chord with me, there's an individual named Preston in Cincinnati at the first Cincinnati business hop that we had. And one of our good friends, Chelsea Wagner, who's third in command over at lower.com, which is a top 25 mortgage company in the US, fintech company. They just raised, I'm just giving her a casual plug, but they just raised the largest Series A in the state of Ohio's history at $100 million. And they're absolutely killing it. Anyways, she is running around this event and it's like, hey, this guy's awesome. He wants to get into mergers and acquisitions. Like, can we find him somebody to be a mentor? And so we're running around. We got a million things. We're trying to talk to this person, that one, the other. And she had just a conviction about her that I don't normally see. And we were like, okay, cool. Yeah. Dan Bernstein is a mergers and acquisitions guys. Let's hook them up and see if they can have a conversation. Lo and behold, they end up getting contact information. Dan takes it upon himself to take him out to one of the nicest golf courses in Cincinnati to to really mentor this guy. And then, we find out time goes on, our lives move on, we think. And he goes and rents out a suite in one of the games, I think it was Cincinnati or the Reds, and brings him and a couple of his buddies to just hang out and get some mentorship and build relationships. And Dan calls PK and starts crying on the phone. And Dan is like, dude, I've gotten away from this. I'm busy. I'm up high in the firm. Like, I forgot how much fun this is and how important this is. And so you take those moments. A lot of people come to these things and they'll be like, well, what am I going to get? The mentors, what am I going to get out of it? You're going to get a lot just from like being able to give back and kind of put yourselves back in the driver's seat when you were a youngster, trying to find your opportunities, trying to find your way. You get this really, really beautiful dichotomy of like these young people really wanting to be there and wanting to learn. And then also these mentors kind of reliving their glory days vicariously through these people and trying to, give them mentorship and give them guidance for the next steps.
I love that. Yeah, I got to be a mentor at the Cincinnati one. Absolutely loved it. It's so much fun to reconnect with peers, with folks that are above you, with folks that are below you. Because I think that when you're in your own head, when you're on your own business, all the problems are the same, right? Like this is our year's target, this is our quarter's target, this is our competitors, this is our industry, and you're just like heads down, racking against the same problem over and over again. But you get not only do you get mentorship, but you kind of get that parallel mentorship, and you get this camaraderie. As you were going up, as you were working your first companies, who were the most impactful mentors, and how did you meet them?
My most impactful mentors in life were probably the people that were going to fire me at one point when I was like in college. anytime I was like rubbing up against potentially not having the job anymore or not being able to do that thing anymore, that's usually when those moments stuck with me the hardest. And I'll give you a good example. I had an internship with a company named IGS Energy and was one of their top producing interns and whatever. I'm an intern. It's like I'm the tallest midget, right? Well, second tallest midget in the team. And I thought I was the hottest shit on the block. And people that really rubbed people the wrong way. And particularly the girl next to me did not like me at all. Because I hadn't learned how to be humble yet. And, at the end of the internship, I get called into the guy's office that was running the sales department. And he's like, sit down, blah, blah, blah. How do you think you did this summer? Like, talk to us. I'm like, I think I crushed it. I had second highest sales, blah, blah, blah. He's like, that's great. You might be the first intern that we ever fired from this program. And I was like, well, what? Like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, Brittany has, a laundry list. She said that you made her summer a living hell. Like, you were not supportive. You were not nice to her. You weren't all these things. And I was like, damn, it really woke me up. I was like, damn, am I about to be the first intern that gets fired from this like $1 billion company? And they said, you need to go read this book this weekend and like write a paper about like what you learned. There was like a self-help book. And so I went, I apologized to her, talked to the other interns, apologized to them, and read the book. And I didn't get fired, but it's moments like that that really humble you, and they're such blessings. And the best mentorship, I think, is when you go through those trials where, especially if you test your character and you're being presented a blind spot that maybe you didn't know you had or didn't know it was bad as it was. And so I love those moments. I had a similar moment in my first job out of college where there's a number of times where like, I was cocky, or I thought that I was great at the job, but, and then I learned maybe I'm not. And so I think the big mentorship opportunity for me has always been like, and this goes for I think a lot of top performers, like there's always someone better, and it's always going to serve you better to be more humble. It's always going to serve your cause better to be more humble. It's always going to serve the people around you to be more humble, be more approachable, be more giving. Your performance will go up, and just living a better life will go up. So my best mentors have been those bosses that were going to fire me.
Yeah.
As funny as it sounds.
No, I've had a couple of kind of smack you in the face moments myself. I remember I was waxing eloquent about some theory that I had, and my boss, who had taken me out for coffee, he physically put his hand up. He's like, "Stop, you're wrong. What you're saying indicates you clearly don't understand the fundamental problem here. Let's go and talk about it." And I was like, "Oh," but it was like, it wasn't just that moment. It gave me a handle to grab in so many more situations and be like, "Hey, maybe this other person knows what they're talking about more than I do." Like, I put a lot of energy into understanding the topics that I talk about, but this is when you listen. Sometimes there's a talk moment, and a lot of times there's a listen moment.
And I think there's a lot of strategy. If we can continue on this topic for a second, I think there's a lot of strategy around surrounding yourself with people who are actually going to give you the real feedback, who are actually going to tell you what you don't want to hear. I think too often in this world, people think that you hearing things that are criticisms of you or opportunities for improvement are avoided, and people are just selling themselves short in those moments. And I'll tell you, like, me working with Pat Klein, my business partner on Vessel, on the Business Hop, on Move and Mingle, on a couple of other things, he tells me what I don't want to hear every day, and it's made me, I feel like, the most successful version of myself so far. There's tons of things I need to work on, but strategically surrounding yourself with those people is always going to be better. If someone's telling you things you don't want to hear, lean into that. Don't lean away from it.
No, it's good. It's good. You have this phrase, it's on Spilt Social's website, but I've also heard you say it multiple times, which is fill someone else's cup. Now, for me, I have a bit of a martial arts background, and there's this phrase that says your cup is too full, which means you think you know too much, so I can't teach you anything. So you have to empty your cup before somebody else can fill it. But I think you mean something else. Talk to me about what you like. Why is this such an important concept for you to fill someone else's cup?
Sure, man. So we coined the fill your cup phrase at the beginning of the entire inception of this company, and the idea of Spilt Social. It's funny you said split social the other introduction, and that's completely fine. We love that because it's actually like the best accidental marketing we've ever had. Half the people out there literally say split, and we don't ever correct them, and the other half say Spilt Social. But spilling a drink, and we want to fill other people's cup up, was kind of the back and forth tagline of our name and that phrase. And the whole purpose of it is just like the mentorship event, the move and mingle event that we put on, a lot of the the holiday events that we put on. We want to create an environment where people feel better leaving the room. We don't want them to feel exhausted or like tired, like, oh my gosh, I just went to a networking event that was so boring and like I gotta be here because of X, Y, and Z reason. We want them to be excited to come there. We want them to be full of life. We want them to have these be some of their core memories in their life. And in order to do that, you have to put a lot of intention into their experience. I think if you look at companies like Chick-fil-A, while maybe they're not the core experience of a lot of people's lives, they're a phenomenal experience of why hospitality matters. And we have role models like that we look at across the industry, across sectors, and we want to be as hospitable as humanly possible, not only in what we do at the event, but after, during, before, everyday walks of life. We talk about how can we avoid being transactional. We don't ever want to be a company that is only doing things because there's a dollar sign around it, or we're going to get a commission, or there's going to be a sponsor. Oh, you got to sponsor my event for me to do that. Strategically baked into what we do, we have giving, and there's a certain amount that we want to do of that every week. A certain amount of freebies or conversations where we're just mentoring, or whatever the case might be, just general service. And so I think it's super important for companies these days to maybe think about that. How do you do things? Acts of services and be more relational than transactional.
I love that. I think the way I heard you guys say it before is that you don't collect people, you connect people, right?
Yeah. 100%.
Absolutely. I love that. Somebody said to me a long time ago, when you walk into the room, there's two types of people: those that walk into the room and say, "Here I am," and those that walk into the room and say, "There you are." And that was a little bit painful for me when they said that initially, because I'm kind of a, "Hey, here I am" sort of a person. And so I've worked on it very diligently to be like, hey, everybody came here looking for something. Everybody came in here trying to share something and to be seen. I've gotten to move across the country a couple of times, and I think everybody should do it, because if you live in the same area and you just kind of stay there and you grow up there, you have this big network of people that know you, and you forget how desperately some people need to be seen and understood, especially in the business context where we're like pushing stuff so how do you the business can be a bit of paycheck to paycheck, or like hustle to hustle, this round, next round, this is the thing that we're working on. How do you get folks to see life kind of more of a, hey, there you are, hey, I want to connect with you, rather than collect you?
I think you got to set the example. And I'll tell you, this is probably the most happy I've ever been in my life, doing the business ops, working with the vessel team. And at the core of what we're doing is trying to serve other people. Sometimes we're getting paid to do these things, other times we're not. But I think, setting the example of the focus of the conversation, it's a very curated experience when you go to the business hop. We have questions that we know should be asked. We intentionally pair people into these small groups. And in the back of our head is like, how do we make the experience the best? And so we want to set a good example for how people can be service oriented. An event that's about mentorship is bringing out really, really good sides of people. And I think because we're setting that precedent, setting that curation, setting that example, it's allowing people to get into that inspired form of themselves that wants to give back to people, that wants to listen to people instead of talk. And so I think, there's a lot of strategy that goes into trying to get that out of people. It's not something that I think you just pray for and hope for in individuals. I think you think about, how do we actually take this out of people and make them want to do it?
Yeah. I run a conference with a friend of mine, and we kind of do the same thing. If people ask me frequently, they're like, how'd you go from engineering to leadership work? And to me, the step is, there's not really a step. It's always been about hospitality. As an engineer, I just wanted to make cool stuff for cool people. And then I began realizing that understanding cool people, like deeply connecting with people and understanding kind of the anthropology behind what makes you tick is what's going to enable me to connect with you. And then there's a very short hop between there and what Vessel's doing, what Spilt Social's doing, and what I'm doing. So let's talk about Vessel for just a second, because we brought that up a couple times. You and Patrick are both doing Spilt Social and Vessel. What is Vessel?
So Vessel is really one of the few Midwestern venture capital firms that is focusing on early stage seed tech. So think about risk scale, right? So risk and reward for, real estate and for, traditional industries, automotive, think about anything that is like sold and is a commodity, like, risk goes down, or just investing in the stock market, risk goes down to one of the lowest levels that you can get, or putting it into a securities exchange for, a guaranteed 4%, low risk. Now go to the other side of that spectrum, all the way other side of that spectrum, the highest risk. Right. That's what we're taking a swing at. And so we want to take the biggest swings and the biggest risk opportunities that are out there. And we've done a good job at kind of cultivating this. So the Midwest, if you think about the amount of capital, and I can send you some information that kind of describes this, we're way underserviced compared to the amount of capital that's on the coast. Yeah. Way underserviced in terms of venture capital. Okay. And so we see ourselves as kind of the pioneers in the Midwest of really trying to change the narrative, change the conversation, get more investment going into these opportunities. And we feel that we're strategically positioned to be able to show a really, really massive return for one of our investment firms that should be exiting, and knock on wood, obviously, in the next 18 to 24 months, that will show a fantastic, big kind of venture capital return. So that's what Vessel does, is we focus on early stage tech companies, ideally that are in the Midwest. We like to bring them into our studio, incubate them, wrap them around our operations, wrap them around our sales strategy, wrap them around all these things that we have resources into. Vessel acquired Spilt Social and the business hops. So now Vessel is a division. Okay. Yep. Now Vessel is a division within the total Vessel ecosystem. So they saw what we were doing on the business hops. They said, hey, that would be a fantastic way to like get more connections going with founders.
I think we lost you there for just a second. Oh, hold on. Let me add you to the stage. Check 1, 2.
Mike. Yep.
There we go. There we go. We lost you. All right. So you said we lost you right at. You said Vessel. Vessel has got Spilt Social, and they've got Business Hop, and it's a great way to connect with folks, which I think is brilliant, by the way.
Yeah. So they saw that organically, like kind of taking place, and if you look at like an insurance brand trying to put on a networking event and get all the people that they want there, or a payroll company to do that and get all the people they want, your chances of getting the right people in the room are like way, way, way less than ours because of what we're focused on. And so what we see is a lot of companies like that wanting to partner with us, wanting to sponsor our events because they see that we can execute on getting the right people in the room. But then we tell them, hey, just because they're in the room doesn't mean go bonkers and business card them to death. We have a very, very high integrity about our event, and we don't want it to be screwed up because of over solicitation or any of that sort of stuff.
So I think that, I agree with you. I do agree. I've been to the business hop in Cincinnati. Absolutely loved it. One of the best, most well executed events. Also the clientele is fantastic. It had folks from literal college students who were crushing it, by the way. Like very, very sharp individuals with great ideas. And I've had a relationship with some of them. They're writing books, they're doing AI projects, all the way up to we had a sitting councilman from Cincinnati there. And we had bankers, we had mentors, we had folks that are in the trenches doing it. It was a fantastic spread. So let's talk a little bit. We've talked about the value proposition for the mentors. Like, you need to be giving back. Kind of COVID made us all forget how to be humans. We need to learn how to do it again. talk to me about, like, I'm on the entry rung. I have an idea. I'm looking for investment. I need to start building those relationships. What are some do's and don'ts to make Business Hop successful for you?
So you paint the picture for me a little bit more. So you have an idea, or you're like an early stage founder, and you want to come there and get mentorship.
Yeah, and get mentorship, because we all know that I can't just like business card everybody. My favorite moment in business networking is a guy walked up to a group of us, and he, like a mailbox, he put his business card in our shirt pockets. It was like plump, 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 and then it was a paintball something or other. But just like, it was simultaneously the worst business networking that I've ever had, and also the best, because I was just like, this is such a caricature of what not to do. So all right, how do I manage that? Hey, I'm in need, and I need investors, and I need mentorship, but also I definitely on the need side, and I don't want to be mailboxing you.
Sure. So I think anytime you're going to a networking event or you're trying to sell anything, the best, and I've studied this my entire life. I've been in sales my entire life, and I've had success everywhere I've went. The best way to approach sales in general is to stroke that person's ego. Like, if you want to have a good conversation with someone, stroke their ego, give them a compliment, talk about them, make the conversation about them, and then ask them questions nonstop. That's it. Talk about them. Hey, you've got the nicest shirt I've ever seen in my entire life. I was in the mall. I was going to get it, but I decided not to, and I'm totally regretting it because you look like $1 million. You say that to someone randomly, they're going to say, okay, this is cool, 10 times out of 10. And then right after that, you should be asking 3, 5, 7 questions and make the conversation about them. Eventually, because you're being so curious and so interested in them, they're going to ask you about you, is what I find most of the time. And then you can give a much better pitch than if you were just to drop a business card and solicit yourself around the room without making any real tie, any psychological connection to that person. So I think if you're going to come to any networking event ever, or try to make an impression on any person ever, is try to, and the best way to tie into someone's ego in a more prepared way actually is to look them up. What's a recent article about them? What's something that they're doing that's significant? Ask them a specific question about that, and then continue to ask them more questions about their life. I think people need to put sales and kind of flip it on its head. You need to make it about the other person, even if there's nothing to sell, because you don't know where they might come down the line. And so I'll stop there before I rant too much, but yeah.
No, actually, I love that, because you read the Russell Brunson books, you read the Alex Hormozy books, which are fantastic books. They are great social media sales books, right? But those are social media sales books. They're about the science and art of advertising, not the science and art of networking. Networking is about, believe it or not, humans and creating genuine connections, and giving first. And I think that's a great piece of advice to compliment. I have one friend who is in the financial services. Now I do spend a little bit of time in the gym. I throw around a little bit of weight, and every time he sees me, he'll come up behind me and he'll kind of grab my tricep. He's like, "Man, you're looking good," and like he's done it enough now that I realize it's kind of one of his lines, and I love it every time.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, when I go to a networking event where I know I'm going to see him, I'm like, somebody's going to compliment my triceps today. Like, I wouldn't admit that, but 100%. Yeah, it's not flattery. It's just humans acknowledging each other for what they've been up to, and the progress.
Yeah. And then I think the other couple of things too that I'll add, again, I don't want to rant because this is what I do for a living, so I could, but is when you leave a conversation with somebody that you think is high impact, that you want to really talk to, don't wait. Within 10 to 15 minutes, shoot them a text. Excited to follow up with you. Can't wait to see what we can work on. Can't wait to support each other together, blah, 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 blah. Do that immediately. That'll make them think that they're a priority to you. And then the other thing is when we're out, we're hustling, we're trying to connect, get mentorship, do all these things that, it can be hard to sometimes work the room. You don't want to overwork the room. You don't want to have 50 conversations that are a minute long, but you also don't want to underwork the room and have 3 conversations that are an hour each. And yeah. It's very easy to get cornered. And the practical advice I'll give about getting cornered at a networking event is just say that, you can always say you have to go to the bathroom. You can go to the bathroom 10 times in an event. You can say that you're going to the bathroom and not go to the bathroom, but just tell people you have to go to the bathroom and get out of it. Don't waste your time getting sucked into a conversation that that you know there's not much juice there, go to the bathroom like 10 times in the bath.
That's a fantastic piece of advice. For the grandstander, what I would say, and this is kind of my rule, is would anybody accuse me of being CrossFit excited about the topic I'm sharing on? Right? Like if I'm telling the CrossFitters shut up because I need to finish my spiel, then I'm talking too much. Currently, it's pickleball. Pickleball is the so yeah, no, I love that. My general rule is, I read this, Leo Lowndes wrote this fantastic book. It's called, I think, 92 Ways to Talk to People. 90, if you look up Leo Lowndes 92, you'll find it. But she suggests that you give people three options. Like, so as you're talking, you're like, hey, I'm doing this. This is what the business is about. And maybe, what about them Jets? Obviously not that random, but you kind of it's a game of ping pong. You're trying to play with the other person. And if you notice that you're serving a lot more than the other person's catching, then maybe it's time to naturally step back. And it's totally, in a business networking scenario, it's totally fine to say, hey, loved this. Let's catch up. I got your contact. And I want to meet some other folks, and I want to make sure that you get the best, you can out of this deal. It's totally cool to just walk away. Everybody, if the other person's good at the game, they understand, yeah, we've already spent 5 or 10 minutes in this conversation. It's time to meet some other folks.
100%. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of do's and don'ts that we could, I'm sure, trailblaze through. But yeah, I could spend another hour and a half on this.
And I'm sure it'd be a great show, but we are running out of time. I know that you have a meeting coming up here, and we're kind of pressed. So I'm going to turn it over to you. You got a couple of minutes, just open floor. Anything you want to say?
Yeah. So, well, thank you so much for having us on last minute. It means a lot to us and the team. And anytime we can share our story, we're very, very appreciative of that. So thank you so much. And yeah, we're just so excited about the Midwest, specifically the Midwest. I lived in Fort Lauderdale for a few years, and I've traveled to 17 different states on a regular basis through what I was doing in the hotel space. And I feel just like the biggest cheerleader for the Midwest, and specifically because of the character that Midwesterners have. You go to the East Coast and you go to the West Coast. I don't believe that this concept of the business hop and mentorship networking, and it really has the chance to really thrive the way it has. And so it all comes down to the community being willing to give back. And because the Midwest is so willing to give back to us, we're going to put a stake in the ground, and we are going to give back to the Midwest as much as humanly possible. We have something that we're not fully ready to announce, but something that's going to be very exciting. Multi-thousand person conference that's going to incorporate music and incorporate mentorship and tons of different business segments around the Midwestern communities. And so what we're doing in these events, these small events in very, very important cities like Louisville and Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Indianapolis, et cetera, we're going to ultimately be bringing together in a really, really fun way. And hope to launch that at the end of the year. So really excited about the Midwest, really excited about what we have going on with mentorship, and excited for our event we've got coming up on Thursday.
I love it. So, listen, if you haven't been to a networking event this year, or if the last couple of networking events that you went to were just like, ugh, I'm glad I did that check. And if you're just checking a box, you need to come to the Louisville Business Hop. It is super fun. The clientele there is amazing. You have diamonds in the rough that are just starting their journey. You got mid-level professionals that are sharing the struggle of that scale from a couple million to 10, 30 million. You got folks that have done it. You got folks that are in politics. The list of mentors and the list of attendees is just the who's who of who you want to meet in Louisville. It's fantastic. I'm actually one of the mentors there. I'm super pumped to be there. Definitely flattered to be included. The folks at Vessel and Spilt Social are fantastic. You just met Josiah, who is probably one of the most gregarious, but very much the average just superstar talent that exists in those groups. So if you want to see what's happening in the Midwest and you want to move that forward, come to the Business Hop. I've dropped the links in the comments below. Tell them you saw him on Josiah on the Drew Sutton Leadership Show. And with that, we are out.